She thought she was untouchable. She thought he'd never find out. A week-long family trip 600 kilometers away, except she was actually laughing on a restaurant patio with her ex, while the man who paid the rent sat at home wondering where their relationship went wrong. But what she didn't know was this. The moment he snapped that photo, the moment he saw her betrayal with his own eyes, he didn't yell, he didn't fight. He quietly started building the most devastating, calculated, cold-blooded revenge our whole friend group still talks about to this day. If you've ever been betrayed, underestimated, or treated like a backup option, hit that subscribe button, like this video, drop a comment, and get ready. Because today's story isn't just about revenge. It's about reclaiming power with absolute precision. Let's dive. He wasn't the flashy type. No dramatic speeches, no cryptic messages on social media, just a quiet, good-hearted guy trying to make a relationship work. For years, he and his girlfriend lived together in a small apartment they shared. Well, he rented it, she lived in it. She wasn't on the lease. They were going through a rough patch, sure, but nothing that screamed this is over. Nothing that justified betrayal. But sometimes the quietest cracks are the deepest. She told him he needed space, that she'd visit her family 400 miles away, a week-long trip, time to reflect, to figure things out. He didn't argue. He didn't question her. He wanted them to get better. But the universe has a brutal way of revealing truth. 2 days into her trip, he drove to a nearby town for a work errand. On his way back, he stopped for lunch at a restaurant patio, a place with warm wooden tables and loud chatter from weekend families, just a normal stop on a normal day. And that's when his world cracked open. There she was, laughing, smiling, drinking wine in the sunlight like her life was perfect, and across from her, her ex. Not her cousin, not her friend, her ex. Their knees touching under the table, her hand brushing his, intimate in the way you can't fake no matter how hard you lie. For a long moment, he just stood there frozen, the kind of stillness that isn't calm, it's shock tightening every muscle in your body. His ears were ringing. His heart felt like he was trying to crawl out of his chest, and all he could think was this is who I've been fighting for? He didn't confront her. He didn't yell across the patio. He didn't flip the table like in the movies. He pulled out his phone, clicked the camera, and captured the truth. One photo, then another, then one more. Her laughing with a freedom she didn't have around him anymore. And that was it. Something inside him, something soft, trusting, hopeful, died quietly. He got into his car, shut the door, and stared out the windshield for a long time. Then he drove home. Not in rage, not in heartbreak, but in a strange, icy clarity. He walked into their apartment, stood in the middle of the living room and looked around, looked at the furniture he bought, the dishes he paid for, the space he maintained while she needed space. And that's when the plan clicked into place. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was surgical. He checked his lease, month to month. 60 days notice required. She wasn't on it. Not legally, not financially. It was his place. And yet, she had treated him like a placeholder. He emailed the landlord that same night. "Hey, I think it's time for me to move. Can we discuss giving notice?" The landlord replied within the hour. He was a good guy, practical, not nosy. "Of course, let's chat." Within 3 days, they had a deal. He gave a 60-day notice. He found a new place, better location, better price, better everything. And then he waited. Over the next few weeks, she came back from her family trip, acting strangely cheerful. She wore new clothes. She was always texting someone, but turning her phone slightly away. He didn't ask. He didn't accuse. He didn't even try. He stayed distant, polite, emotionless, like a man already halfway out the door, which, in truth, he was. When she suggested they take a break, he simply nodded. When she said she'd be spending the night at a friend's place, he just said, "All right, take care." No fight, no questions, nothing for her to push against. It unnerved her. A part of her expected him to beg, to plead, to chase, but he was too busy packing the pieces of his life, carefully, methodically, quietly. Meanwhile, his landlord played along perfectly. Whenever potential new tenants came to inspect the apartment, he ensured the visits happened during the day, when she was at work or out with her friends. She never suspected a thing. And then the final week arrived. A cold Tuesday morning, dawn barely breaking through the blinds. The hired moving crew knocked on the door at 7 a.m. sharp. He opened a door, nodded, and the men filed in like a silent army. Boxes came out, tape ripped. Furniture was disassembled. Everything he owned, everything he had brought into this relationship was packed piece by piece. The sound echoed through the apartment, the sound of an ending. She stumbled out of the bedroom, hair messy, eyes confused. What's going on? Why are there movers here? He didn't speak first. He simply walked to the kitchen counter, picked up a small folder, and placed it gently on the coffee table between them. Inside, the photos. Her ex, the patio, the truth. She froze. Her mouth opened, then closed, her face drained of color. I can explain. He held up a hand. Calm, cold, silent authority. No need. Before she could gather herself, another voice entered, the landlord. He stepped inside, looked right at her, and said, "You have until midnight to move your belongings out. New tenants arrive in 2 days. Anything left here tonight goes on the curb." She stared at both men like the world was collapsing beneath her feet. "My stuff! Where am I supposed to go? I live here." "You don't," the landlord replied evenly, "not legally. The lease is in his name." But we live together." "Not anymore." You could hear a pin drop. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't insult her. He didn't even gloat. He just stood there, the same calm composure he'd held for weeks, the composure of a man who refuses to let betrayal drag him into chaos. She begged, pleaded, tried to argue that they could work through this, but he'd already worked through everything, privately, silently, and efficiently. His movers finished in under 2 hours. All that remained were her clothes, her toiletries, her scattered pieces of a life she thought she controlled. He took one last photo, the final piece of poetic closure, her belongings in a messy pile in the middle of the room, a stark contrast to the clean, packed boxes of the man she underestimated. The queen of manipulation, checkmated by silence. And then he walked out, closed the door behind him, and didn't look back. To this day, the story is legendary in our friend group, not because he humiliated her, not because he caught her, but because he executed a perfect revenge without raising his voice, without lowering his dignity, and without letting betrayal turn him bitter. He didn't destroy her. He simply removed himself from her world, which honestly hurt her more than anything he could have said. She called him later. He ignored it. She texted paragraphs, voice notes, apologies, excuses. He blocked her. She showed up at his new place once crying on the doorstep. He stood calmly in the doorway and said, "You made your choices. I made mine." Then he closed the door. That was it. The end of a chapter that should have ended long before the patio photos, and the beginning of a life on his terms. She showed up at his new place once crying on the doorstep. He stood calmly in the doorway and said, "You made your choices. I made mine." Then he closed the door. That was it. The end of a chapter that should have ended long before the patio photos, and the beginning of a life on his terms. Sometimes the loudest revenge is silence. Sometimes the strongest move is walking away, and sometimes the best justice is letting someone feel the emptiness they created, not out of cruelty, but out of self-respect. If this story hit you in the chest even a little bit, smash that like button. Subscribe for more powerful real-life stories. And tell me in the comments, what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen or heard?